Good morning, Bone.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Doing well. We talked offensive prospects for 2021 last week. We're going to talk defensive prospects, so we might as well start with the two commitments that Alabama has on the defensive side of the ball in this class. Let's begin with Deonte Lawson from Mobile Christian School, plays for Ronnie Cottrell there in Mobile, former Alabama recruiting coordinator. What does Alabama like about Deonte Lawson, a pass rushing outside guy?
Yeah, well, I think they like a lot about him. I mean, he's a big kid, 6'3", about 210 pounds. Maybe up to about 215 now, but definitely can play inside or out. He plays mainly on the outside right now for Coach Cottrell at Mobile Christian. They made it to the state championship this past year, lost to Piedmont in the state title game, but he had an excellent year. He was named the Class 3A Lineman of the Year. Just had a really productive season, and I think Alabama was. I wouldn't say they were surprised when he committed, but maybe I don't know how to say it. I guess they were very happy with his commitment. There's no doubt about it. But I think a lot of people probably thought that he was going to take it a little bit longer before he made that decision. Decided to commit around Christmas time, and I even talked to Coach Ronnie Cottrell about it, and he said he was surprised with his early decision, that he kind of thought that LSU, Auburn were very high on his list, but he said, he didn't think he's one of those kids that's, really even going to take any other visits, that he's, very firm. He's very committed to Alabama. Once he made a decision, didn't want to go back on his word, and, went ahead and committed to Alabama, just built a very good relationship with the coaching staff. Sal Sinceri, his lead recruiter, did a great job early on with him, and definitely a kid that Alabama's extremely high on, and they really are excited to have him on board. And I think, like I said, could be one of those guys who can play inside or outside. I think a good comparison might be Demoy Kennedy, 5-star linebacker, signed with Alabama in 2020, and definitely somebody that Alabama fans should get excited about it in this class.
Excellent. Sounds like you like him a lot. Latrell McCutchin is the cornerback out of LBJ High School in Austin, Texas, 6'1", 176. Alabama offered him early. He accepted. He's committed. Tell us about him.
Yeah, I mean, very talented defensive back. One of the big, unfortunate things for him is he suffered a torn ACL during his junior season, and certainly one of those kids that there was a lot of eyes on this past fall, because a lot of people thought that he could have been a 5-star, and he still might be. He's just kind of he's having to recover right now from this ACL injury, and going to be taking some visits this spring. He's already said he's going to take a visit to Oklahoma. There's a lot of other schools that are coming after him, but as of now, still pretty firm with Alabama. Alabama, really likes him a lot. Despite his the injury, they still want to keep him on board, and but you do have to battle some of these other schools that are might be a little bit closer to home, especially if he starts taking more visits. Obviously, he's going to go to Oklahoma, but where else does he end up going? Does he take a visit to Texas or Texas A&M? Maybe LSU. Those are some programs that continue to push hard for him, continue to recruit him, but Alabama's just got to fight to keep him on board.
All right, Bone, let's get to some other guys. And I'm gonna ask you about some in-state guys. And then before we wrap up the segment, I'll let you tell us, about some of the top national prospects. But we mentioned, I think we mentioned Koolaid McKinstry last week from Pinson Valley because he can play both sides of the ball. But his best position in college, could it be in the secondary? So let's go ahead, and even though we mentioned him last week, give us some insight on McKinstry, and do you think there's a chance he could wind up playing on the defensive side in college?
Yeah, DeQuincy, also known as Kool-Aid by many people, definitely one of the top overall players in the country, number one player in the state of Alabama. Plays on both sides of the ball, but I think as of right now, I'm probably going to end up playing defense. I think he's definitely a cornerback prospect at the next level. He's also a big-time basketball recruit. He's got a lot of scholarship offers in basketball, including one from Nate Oates at Alabama. So, definitely somebody that, can play both sports in college. I think Alabama's in great shape with him early on. A lot of schools obviously heavily pursuing him. There's been a lot of talk about Clemson. There's been, a lot of talk about Auburn. But as of right now, I'd say Alabama's in the driver's seat for him.
Good deal. Dillon Brooks, another outstanding pass rushing type prospect from Hanley High School in Roanoke.
Yeah, Dillon Brooks, same high school as Bradley Bozeman. As we saw, Bradley devoured a 72-ounce steak in Texas this past week. I don't know if Dillon Brooks can do that just yet, but he has put on a little bit of weight, which is a good thing, because last summer I think he was about 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", about 210 pounds, and now he's close to about 230 pounds. So maybe he's been eating a few steaks as well, but I think that's a real good thing for him to put on some weight. Definitely a guy that Alabama likes a lot. Probably an outside guy, could potentially end up as a jack linebacker. I think he ends up staying in state. I think it's an Alabama-Auburn battle. He's been to both programs several times. A lot of other schools continuing to recruit him, but I have a hard time seeing him leave the state of Alabama.
A similar type prospect is Jeremiah Williams from Ramsey High School in Birmingham, 6'4", 220, very similar in size to Dillon Brooks. And I've been told that Alabama's in really good shape there, Bone. Is that what you think?
Well, I don't know if I'd say really good shape. I think Alabama's certainly a school that he likes a lot. They just recently offered him. He actually grew up an Auburn fan, big-time Auburn fan. His whole family Auburn fans. So, and Auburn's been very high on his list for a long time. But being in Birmingham, being teammates with Tim Keenan, who I think is a very, very strong Alabama lean 4-star defensive tackle. We'll talk about here in a second. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think that Alabama's starting to come on pretty strong with Jeremiah Williams. He just got named the linebacker MVP at the Rivals camp this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago, down in Florida. So definitely keep an eye on him. I think his stock's just going to continue to rise throughout the spring and summer.
All right, you mentioned Keenan, his teammate, a guy I love, huge defensive tackle from there at Ramsey. I said this, I think, to you before. I'd be shocked if he goes anywhere else other than Alabama, but he is being recruited nationwide. So what's the latest on Keenan?
Well, he's a wrecking ball. Just a big kid. He's probably, I think he's maybe around 6'2", 6'3", over 300 pounds. Very quick, strong kid. I definitely think that Alabama's in the driver's seat for him. His mentor, Quentin Williams, they talk just about every week. So I definitely think Alabama's in very good shape. He's been going to Alabama camps, pretty much since his freshman year. I've got a great relationship with the coaching staff down there. I wouldn't be surprised if he committed early. Now, he's said many, many times that he wants to take it all the way down to signing day, that he wants to, when he makes that decision, he doesn't want to go back on his word. Now, I don't see him going back on his word if he commits to Alabama at any point, because I think he's that strong of a lean to Alabama right now. But he does want to take some spring and summer visits. We'll see if maybe he makes a decision before the start of the season. I could see that happening, but I definitely think that Alabama's in great shape for him right now.
Another big defensive lineman from in the state is Lee Hunter from Blunt down in Pritchard. Now he's committed to Auburn, 6'5", around 290, but clearly Alabama will continue to recruit him, Bone.
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest thing with him is, how good of a shape can he stay in? He's a big kid at 6'5", close to 300 pounds already. So, I think just conditioning is going to be, kind of his main thing. Alabama's going to continue to watch him, continue to evaluate. They did offer him during the football season, but still think they want to see him a little bit more. He probably needs to come to camp this summer, before they make just a absolutely strong push for him. But definitely somebody to keep an eye on. He is committed to Auburn, So that's going to be tough to flip him away from the Tigers. But we'll see. You know, we've seen Alabama kind of turn the heat up on several of these Auburn commitments kind of later in the process. You know, we saw that with Quentin Williams several years ago. We saw that this past year with Javion Cohen. So we'll see how things go with Lee Hunter over the course of the next 6 months or so.
All right, I want to ask you about a couple more guys. A local kid from here in Tuscaloosa at American Christian, Kumari Lassiter, a versatile athlete, but I think projects as a cornerback at the next level. How much interest does Alabama have in him?
Yeah, there's definitely definitely some strong interest. He camped at Alabama last summer. And that's when they really, first kind of, noticed him. I think that, he really surprised them at camp, working at defensive back. He can play on either side of the ball. Was very productive this past season at American Christian. I definitely think that, he's somebody that they're going to continue to watch, continue to evaluate, kind of figure out, exactly where he can play at the next level. But, definitely somebody to watch throughout the spring and summer, just kind of see, kind of where things fall with him. But I definitely think that Alabama's interested, and we'll kind of see what happens.
And finally, what can you tell us about Ian Jackson, the outside linebacker, 6'1", maybe a little over 200 pounds from Prattville?
Yeah, I think Alabama's definitely interested. He showed up at Alabama's camp. At their camp, showed up at Alabama's junior day last month, and I think they were really impressed with his size. He, great size, 6'1", 210 pounds. I think the biggest thing with him is where can he play? Is he an outside linebacker? Is he a safety? So I think the biggest thing is kind of getting him on campus this summer to participate in camp, kind of figure it out. But I do think that they really like him a lot, and he could, it would not shock me if he's a part of Alabama's recruiting class.
All right, Alabama recruits nationally. We know that. Kind of just give us a synopsis of some of the, a handful of the top national defensive guys that Alabama's pursuing.
Well, I think, obviously want to continue to load up on the defensive line. They've got a ton of defensive line targets that are out there, big-time national guys. Mason Smith is the top defensive tackle in the country out of Louisiana. Definitely looking like it's going to be another one of those Alabama versus LSU type battles with him. Alabama also in pretty good shape with Monkel Goodwine, defensive end out of Washington, D.C., somebody that I could see easily as a part of Alabama's recruiting class. They had a great class at linebacker this past year in 2020, especially on the outside. Now we talked about Dillon Brooks, obviously a big time, in-state player for them. But Keno Knott is a outside linebacker, inside, can play outside or inside, out of Vero Beach, Florida. Somebody that they really like a lot. Dallas Turner, another kid out of Florida, South Florida, that they're very high on, who attended junior day. Barrett Carter out of Georgia, North Gwinnett. Those are some guys that they're very high on. Defensive back wise, a lot of defensive backs that are out there. Obviously, we talked about Koolaid, Latrell McCutchin, James Williams, who's definitely a top 20 overall player in the country, safety out of South Florida. Terrion Arnold out of Tallahassee, kid that can play safety, cornerback, star. I mean, he can play just about any defensive back position. Jordan Hancock, a four-star defensive back out of North Gwinnett. And those are some of the big names that they're really going after, that they're extremely high on, that Alabama could end up landing over the course of the next few months.
All right. Before we close it out, Bone, I want to ask you a question that you wouldn't think would relate to recruiting, but I've already seen some of course, current players, former players, and prospects commenting on Scott Cochran's departure. I mean, it's very unusual that the strength and conditioning coach would have an impact on recruiting, but I think he does. I mean, he was the first celebrity strength coach. When guys got here on campus, a big part of what they're pitched was the conditioning program. Him leaving, and of course now he'll be an active recruiter at Georgia as a position coach there with special teams. Him leaving Alabama, how does it impact, if at all, in recruiting? And will it be a boost to what is already a great recruiting program at the University of Georgia? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of with a lot of the former players, current players, and thinking, it is a big loss. You talk to so many recruits that, when they visit campus, and whenever you ask them, who are the coaches that they spent the most time with, and Coach Cochran's usually one of the guys that they mention, and that they really enjoy spending time with, and learning things about, learning about the strength and conditioning program, and because you're with these strength coaches, so much during the year, and especially during the summer when you can't be around, the position coaches or your head coach. You're with the strength coach all summer long. So, he's definitely building, or these strength coaches definitely build strong relationships with these guys. And Scott Cochran has, ever since he's been at Alabama, has definitely, been one of the guys that has been a great recruiting tool for Alabama. So, I definitely think they're going to have to hit a home run, whenever they do hire a new strength coach, and because he's going to be with these guys just as much as all these other coaches. So, I think it's a big loss for Alabama, but I think if they get somebody in, the right guy in, they should be just fine.
All right, great stuff as always from Andrew Bone. Bone, you're right there at BamaInsider.com. You've got a heavy social media presence on Twitter and Facebook, so a lot of ways that recruiting fans can follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just follow me at my Twitter handle at Andrew J. Bone. You can follow us at BamaInsider.com, which is
Thank you, Bone.
Part of the Rivals.com network. Thank you, Jerry.
All right, good job. Great up.